My name's Mike. I'm a co-founder of Trifecta Rehab here. I'm a physiotherapist. Well, to start, I guess, my physiotherapy story. So I got into physio school back in 2011. Pretty much, physiotherapy is a 2.5-year program. You go through the physio program and you come out as a physiotherapist. It's a pretty intense program. At the time, I got in pretty young. Everyone, I'd say the average age in the program was probably like 28, 29. I was probably 24. You know, I was young, I was excited, I was pumped to be a physio. Everyone wants to be a physio. I shouldn't say everyone, but it's a great job, to be really honest. What I didn't realize was I was actually going through a lot of stuff on my own as well. And so I was having a tough time with my relationship at the time. I was dealing with someone that was close to me that was having cancer. So just kind of being able to kind of juggle all that together was definitely quite difficult. And I just wasn't ready to juggle all that at once. And to be very honest, like I broke. I ended up almost dropping out of physio school. I took a leave of absence. The thing with physio school is you can't just take a leave of absence and jump back into where you were. So I was essentially like 2 years into the program, about to graduate in the next like 4 or 5 months, and I had to take the leave of absence then. It was a pretty crappy thing for me to have to do because I was on the final stretch. I was the president of my class essentially, and I had to kind of like man up and realize that I wasn't strong enough at the time to kind of go through with the rest of the process. So I kind of had to let my peers know, and your peers in physio school are essentially your family. You grow up with them and you go through the 2 years, you guys really form really close bonds, and so when you have to kind of break that, it's tough. And just admitting to anyone that, hey, you know, like I'm not as strong as I was or I thought I could be, is a pretty big thing. So I took a year off, essentially from physio school. It was probably the year where I grew the most. I went from like the lowest of lows. You could probably say I had some sort of depression, some severity or intensity or degree of depression. I would say that was my rock bottom, like 100% my rock bottom. It took me a while to kind of like get out of that slump. I remember there's 2 weeks I didn't leave my room. I went to go to the bathroom, clean up, and that was it. I would just sit and sulk. And so when people talk about like mental illness or depression, like I definitely can't say like I had that or I have that, but definitely I can relate to some degree, like what feeling down feels like. And so during that time I didn't think I'd be a good physio. I went through the program the following year, and you know, when you drop out of a program and re-enter, especially when you've pretty much completed the program, you don't want to tell your peers or your new peers or your new physio family that, hey, you know, like I've pretty much done this program before, like I'm just here to do it again, because everyone looks at you differently, to be honest. And that's something that I just didn't really want to go through. And so the entire program, and just even almost up till now, I always felt like I had that chip off my shoulder, you know, just where I'd never felt like I was like good enough. You could definitely say like I fear failure. I probably still do it to some degree. I just have a better understanding of, you know, what I'm doing and like what my why, what my purpose is. And so when I kind of reflect and like refocus and hone in on like what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, everything becomes a lot easier. But during that process was a really, really dark time. I struggled with my relationship, struggled with family. My sister, who I'm like super, super close to, I have 3 other siblings, but my sister I'm the closest to. We're on the same wavelength and we each do our own thing. But that was a time where she actually came and like visited me. I was like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, do you want to go out? Do you want to grab food? And that's when I was like, okay, Mike, you gotta like get your shit together, because your sister's worried about you. And if your sister's worried about you, like something's got to change, and you can't sit in your room for like 2 or 3 weeks not doing anything. So I had to like find a way to kind of keep myself busy and grow. I realized I didn't want to stay at the bottom of the barrel anymore. So I took painting up as a hobby, to be honest, as weird as that sounds. It was just a nice escape for me for a bit. So I did that for a while, and then I fell back on my my bachelor's degree. So I utilized that as a kinesiologist. I worked independently for a while, worked with some neuro patients. It was a great experience. But yeah, so I did that for a bit. And then when I was about to re-enter physio school, definitely you went through it with a chip off your shoulder. You didn't really want to disclose any information. I definitely took a different focus when I got into physio school. Growing up, I was always like very outgoing, outspoken, you know, the big extrovert. I played on all the sports teams growing up. And so when I went back to physio school the second time, I decided that I just didn't want that. I didn't want the spotlight. I just wanted to like focus on work, on school, and I was in there to get that done, and then I was going to get out. I didn't want to risk like dividing my resources, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, to other things, because I really didn't want to have that experience again. So fast forward closer towards like graduation. After you graduate, you write your board exams, and like this is something that like, a lot of people don't know because I don't really disclose it. But I failed my first board exam, the written portion, and I figured like that's honestly my biggest vulnerability. Like to this day, is like dropping out of school, or people knowing that I almost dropped out of school, and then failing the board exam. So I already went through enough like crap, like taking leave of absence from school, and then going back, and then going through school again, and then like not passing my like first part of my board exam. Like that was devastating for me. I was like, are you kidding me? Like again? And it's not like I didn't study. Like I busted my butt studying. And like I just hit that wall again. I was like, you know, like, is this really for me? Like, am I supposed to be a physio? So you start to question a lot of like things in life. I casted like a lot of self-doubt over myself. And I'm sure like some of my friends, like my close peers, like realized that as well. Like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, don't worry about it. You got it. Like one of my close friends, who's actually my business partner with Trifecta Rehab, actually, really was like a big helping. Like he was a very brotherly figure for me. He was my rock when I didn't have one at the time. So he kind of helped like pull me up a little bit here and there. He's the kind of guy that likes to kind of sit back and like, it's like, he's not the emotional kind of guy, but he's the guy that was like, hey, like, you good? Like, and he'll give you a kick in the butt when you need one. So I went through that, and I was actually supposed to start working as a physio after I wrote my board exam, but because I didn't pass the exam, you know, I wasn't able to work yet. And so I had all these job opportunities lined up that I was ready to take on, and it was a very like shameful thing for me, because I was like, you know, you almost dropped out of physio school, can't pass your board exam, like, you sure you really want to do this? And so even as a physio, like, I like treated people and like physically like with a lot of like doubt in myself. Like, is this like best practice, or like am I giving them like 100% of me? Like, what am I doing? Like, where am I at? And I think it took a long time for me to realize that, like, hey, Mike, you're a good physio. Like, you're compassionate. I have had a lot of patients that, like, it's been nice because I've had a lot of patients reinforce that for me. Whether it's like verbally, through cards and stuff like that. Like, I know I'm a good physio, but in the back of my mind, because I've gone through all this struggle, like, I know what failure is. And I remember when I failed my board exam, when I went back to do it the second time, I remember, like, Mike, remember that feeling you had when you wrote the board exam and when you found that you failed? I remember I never ever wanted to feel like that again, ever. Like, I was like, that's it, like, that's the last time I'm gonna feel that. And so I was like, okay, like, let's buckle down, do your thing, like, and get shit done. And so I literally studied for the exam like night and day. I lived, breathed, and ate that exam. So I went to go do the exam, passed it, and I was like ecstatic, because I'm not an exam guy. I'm more of like a hands-on learner, and obviously, you know, like with school or anything, like the tests that they give you in school aren't always reflective of what the industry wants or what happens in the industry. And so that was like a big thing for me to actually, like, even right now, like just talking about like having to like redo that and going through that, like that failure, that struggle, like it's kind of bringing up like, oh, like, hey, Mike, like, that's what it felt like. Do you remember what it feels like? And it's like not a really good feeling. It's just like, it's like a rock or that lump in your throat, essentially. And so I got a really good opportunity working in private practice at another physio clinic. And I've got a lot of like good mentorship, not just like through therapy, but also through like the business aspect of things. And I knew my end goal was to be able to spend more time with family and to leave a legacy of my own. And so I co-founded Trifecta Rehab, and that's where we are today. So I guess like what I gained from my struggle, or what I really believe in, is like everything's about growth. Whether it's small, large, personal, emotional, or even professional, everything is about growth. You only fail if you don't pick yourself back up and try it again, or you don't learn the lesson the first time that failure happened. I heard this from Will Smith. I'm sure it's from someone else, but again, it's like you want to fail frequently, fail hard, and fail forward. Something like that. Actually, I should really find out what that is. But yeah, that like I totally like resonate with that. You know, the most successful people in the world are the people that have made the most mistakes or had the most failure, have had the largest struggle in life. And so for me, even like through my relationships, like I'm not anywhere close to who I was before. I'm significantly, I've grown significantly. You know, I've matured significantly, and I have a completely different mindset perspective. I've really honed in on like what I value. A lot of people lose their values or their morals during their struggles, and it's very difficult to come out of that, to be really honest, because you question everything. Like, is this really what I want? That's what I was brought up to believe is good or is right. But once you kind of reconnect with your morals and your values, and I think part of those grow with failure. You really reassess like what's important to you, what do you want out of life, and like why you want to do things. I've done a lot of personal growth since 2011, and a lot of it is like, why do you do that? Why do you like help people? Why am I a physio? Everyone's like, oh, because I want to help people. Like, is that really why you do it? Like, yes, it's a very noble cause to help people, but like my why is like I want to be able to spend time with my family, and know that like I'm also helping people when I'm not with my family. And so for me, like my parents are like the hardest working parents like out there for sure, and they were working so hard that they couldn't afford the time to watch me grow up and like play sports, and that was something that was very important to me. And I know that being a physio and being, more importantly, being like my own boss and being a business owner, I'm able to afford that time, hopefully eventually, when I have my family, to afford that time to work and see my family. Whether my daughter wants to go play soccer, or my son wants to go to Kung Fu or art class or whatnot, I just want to have the opportunity, like, hey, you know, like my kids or my family have an important function on this day, I'm just going to take the day off and be able to do that because I can.